definitely forget these exist. And it's just one of the things that I can talk about when I get started here. So hi there everybody, my name is Maddie Lynn, if you don't know me already, and if you are just tuning in, you're watching what I call the IC channel. And it's a name that I've developed over some time now to try and describe within the language vocabulary limits what it is that we're doing here, me specifically in this moment, but we as humans, while we converse and traverse the thing we call Earth. So, IC is the cosmic perspective notion of the universal perspective we can all tune into as the wondrous and miraculous human beings we are. We really do have these powers of vision and we get to look at points of perspective through lenses. This is not rehearsed, this is just me entering into the space within time and space. And so with that, today I am coming into the conversation to talk about myself, and I'm not necessarily good at it, and I'm improving all of the time to bring the conversation to my story and my position as a linear, progressive conversation. Because I basically spin into and cycle into what it is that I have experienced to then give reason and rationale to the choices and the behaviors and the patterns that I have adapted and adopted. And so with this episode, you'll get to hear a little bit about my personal side, my journey, what I've gone through, and where it's led me. Literally to right here, right now, inside my space that is newly my own. I moved into a separate garage and I've just transformed it into my own workspace, functional. I sleep here, I create my art here, I can do my yoga here, and I can talk here too, I guess, because that's what we're doing. So anyways, the now moment is exactly where we are, and so I'll get there. But let's start from the beginning, right? So my story began, and I usually summarize this in one small little sentence saying, usually in the framework of my last name, because that's how things enter into conversation. But basically, I was not raised by my mother. When someone asks me, hey, who are you, why is your last name Chan? So my last name is that entry point to talk about the fact that I was not supported by my mother. My father was not in the picture. And so myself, my one brother, he and I were removed from her care and put into foster care since we were like 2 and 1. And so that led to many things, and we'll get there. But the end of my story that I try to speed through and get to the side of things that's a little more happier and positive was the fact that I was adopted by my long-term foster parent. So her home that she provided and structured for myself and my brother was a place for me to grow inside of, for us to grow inside of, and then eventually that was made legal that we were family, even though I grew up with that notion that who I was around was a chosen sense of the idea, and once things were put into documents and paperwork done to make it all formal and formalized, I was then Maddie Chan, because my adoptive mother's husband's last name was Chan. He was Chinese, so her kids were half Chinese, and thus when I got adopted I went with the assumption, or I chose to take the last name. And so Maddie Lynn Woolston Chan was my full-fledged legal name. And so that's usually where people go, Chan? You're quite white. Are you Asian? Are you Chinese? I've actually had, were you relatives to Jackie Chan? Only once or twice, because that's very young and immature. That's high school conversation. Not related to Jackie Chan. My adoptive mother, I call her Grandma. So Grandma's husband was Lori Chan, and so at a certain point, it was something that I chose to adopt because that made me feel more part of the family, that I was also a Chan. Not that there was any culture to tie that really into. There definitely is the seeds of the beauty of that culture for sure that I was raised with. My grandma was somebody who definitely had a diverse approach within her old-fashioned tendencies. And so this isn't to bring into my personal emotional story of all of the woes and whims that I've gone through, but I'm bringing insight to the fact that I've had those specific struggles inside of the parental units. And ultimately, what's shown me is that we are all individuals. We're all people. Doing the people thing, winging it, figuring it out. And sometimes some people have a clearer idea, and then we can learn from those examples. And then sometimes there are people who are completely lost and still doing their thing of speaking their perspectives and beliefs, and that energy gets put out and can be damaging, unhealthy. Lenses, language, vocabulary. The story goes that I was personally inside of situations that weren't for my that weren't in my best interest, and so the universe went, here you go, you're gonna grow right there. You're gonna be able to be loved and supported as much as possible through the person that I was provided as family. And then here we are, continuing on with the story, carrying on, saying it's okay, that I always do talk about myself in certain circumstances with the opportunities provided in a way that I see the positives. I know that there was benefit. I understand that there are reasons for things, that even in the moment when it's difficult and challenging to see clearly through the emotions, through the motions itself, there are places that you'll get to where you can look back and go, this is why. This is exactly why. It had to be this way, and this is how I would learn. This is the only way that I would learn how to be more myself, how to be more capable, more resilient, stronger, more independent. Virtues, things that you can say life will teach you, but then ultimately it's you to assume those lessons. The individual has to stand inside of that knowing and open up to that place of growth, right? A quote that's really helped me back in my days, not too long ago actually, which just helped provide language for how I was and how I chose to be. So the quote goes, "You divinely place your family in order to learn to relinquish control." So I'll unpack that a little bit. You, before becoming the human in the flesh, before being reincarnated, and before embarking upon the human journey, before all of that, you decided to come here and you made a contract of some sort with the galaxy, with the universe, with the creative force, You decided that you're going to come into this world and there's a whole life path ahead of you. There are lessons and obstacles and all that shaping stuff for you to come out the other side becoming more attuned with that very notion of your sense of spirit. So that was all decided, and you came into this world to be in order to learn from the people around you, the people you grew up with, the people who provided you the experiences that you had, just that they weren't good or bad, just that they were experiences that you were meant to have in order to learn that you have no control over others. You couldn't, you wouldn't, you shouldn't. Why would you? Because the way it works is free will, that we all have a sense of independence and sovereignty to live life the way you want to live, right? The biggest lessons for Maddie inside of that were the boundaries inside of other people's perspectives, choices, and life paths, and my own. I definitely have been what they call a person who pleases, a people pleaser. I don't like the titles and labels of things. So the person I had grown up to be in the certain environments that I was inside of eventually showed me how to set myself aside and detach and separate and realize that I have the right and deserve to do such. I have the right and deserve to honor my own being, which is something that takes time and practice. Myself, don't know exactly what that means at first, because are there really good examples? Were there people around us that lived that way, or were there more people pleasers and those who didn't speak up, and those who did speak, they overspoke, and the notion of too hot, too cold, too close, too far? Where's the sweet spot? Where can I enter into the place of ease and be myself? Where can I both receive love and give love in ways that are appropriate and healthy, and ways that are constructive and aligned, natural, organic? Within experiencing what it isn't, what examples are around you that made the difficulties known, exemplified the extremes. There were paths and choices and areas of emotion that brought me into learning how to honor what it is for me. I can't do that for you. I can't navigate. Nobody else can navigate your emotional experience but you. And the gift really is that there is a feedback loop. It's the design divinely, orchestrated for us to learn from. So when you enter into a space and you do your thing, and you're met with the mirroring, the reflection of somebody else inside of that moment, giving their version and perspective of what you're doing, you can take that with a grain of salt maybe, and understand that that moment will unfold for you to unpack and take from it what you will, so that you can be more yourself. And that really does turn into the conversation of discernment. And so from your awareness and your ability to have discernment, you can go in a direction. And maybe there is the encouragement in this moment to recognize where the growth is, because otherwise we circle around and we spiral into repetition and just repeating patterns, and never really learning that there's different choices, different behaviors, different patterns to adopt, to feel out the experience and get a sense of individualism, which is the grand notion. I have many avenues to try and bridge this idea, and I want to bring astrology into it, because we all have this individual nature. It's the way it goes. We also have the collective environment that we're around, and we do want to honor other people and their emotions, and that brings harmony by respecting where other people are at and where they come from, where they came from. The story matters, though. We need to realize that we gotta own up to our things. We gotta take responsibility, and luckily have other people take the position to hold us accountable, or be in position to hold us accountable. It's not always easy to do so by yourself. There are blind spots to the whole thing, right? So what I'm getting at here is a big lesson of relationships. My social interactions growing up, they were definitely shaped in a unique way, and thankfully so, I learned how to communicate to all sorts of people. And this definitely expanded when I went into my career field. I chose to do a career in nursing, and it's almost like I could say, no surprise, I wanted to help people because I knew what it looked like, and I also recognized that people eventually couldn't help themselves. They weren't able to see themselves out of situations, and that wasn't even within my vocabulary or my understanding. I more so was just there to support wherever I could, and I found myself in long-term care after I did my program, doing what they call casual work. So I was a casual nurse working within 4 facilities by the end of my experience, and I found myself inside of so many different circumstances, contexts, conversations, places of awareness, like I had lived lifetimes, and I can say it in this way. And there's a whole conversation to even get into. I'm trying to summarize every little thing that I have picked up on, because they're basically just patterns, paradigms, and if you take out the linear notion of age and time frames, I'm seeing people for all of what they were at the end of their life. And even in the end of their life, I was there for that too, to know how it does end, and then it does end, and I'm reminded of that very fact, and I definitely am somebody to focus there more than most. It's the way she goes. We do end, and that's something to contemplate on a regular basis, to enter into the notion that this life does indeed end. And I say this life because our living essence, our living nature, transcends to the next, whatever that is. There's a stage over there, and this stage is where we practice, right? This is the dress rehearsal. This is where we show up and face it till you make it. And gratefully, there's grace and time to learn our lessons, and space to figure it out and feel out what's right, and what is meant for you. So part of my journey really is to speak my story, and I've been able to do so in little ways. Like I'm saying, our ways of being are ultimately seen and recognized by others within their context. They can apply their framework and gather from your decisions, patterns, behaviors, what it means to them. And sometimes you jive with people and they get excited to see where you're at in life, and then sometimes you just obviously rub people the wrong way and you're abrasive because maybe you shake up their entire idea of what it means to live, because maybe they haven't defined it whatsoever, or haven't entered into any sort of those thoughts to see any sort of evolution within their own, place of awareness. And that's fine too. I really have been that person to show up in those spaces in a professional manner. I was somebody to wear many hats. So within that, there's the desire within me to understand and spend time with people, to recognize that as I so desire to support and help, I have to be met by somebody who also wants to receive that exact thing. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And I can get into stories and certain specifics where I have been a witness to what it looks like when somebody refuses. And that's fine. You document and carry on. You make note and realize that that's what it looks like, and they're within their right to do so, and they're comfortable, so that's fine. And I'm also that person to push a little further and do my very, very, very best to approach those places of dis-ease, because even if someone's words are, oh no, this is fine, there's so much more going on within the body that I'm like, well, this is something that's happening. I can see this happening, or you're talking about this, or you're expressing this, or this is a symptom. I'll pick up on that and I'll bring that to the table and go, hey, let's approach this, and rather than say you need to do this, we can go this external thing or this far away thing or this thing over here that's just something you're experiencing can be brought to our attention, and we can focus here and heal that, or help it, or bring it closer to homeostasis, balance. What your body is striving for all of the time is balance, right? And it will not stop. Not until you're at the point where you're deemed actively dying will it stop trying to be at homeostasis, at balance. So, balance. It takes a lifetime sometimes. Literally. Some people pick up on it quite quickly, and then they have other issues within the framework of life. But balance really is everything together. And if you look at the idea of balance in the astrological sense, that's a whole conversation for what it really is. But you want to balance the body in its environment, the body, mind, spirit, interplay. You want to balance your idea of what you're giving and what you're receiving. You want to balance the idea of how much you're doing and how much you're not doing, because that changes, it's variable, especially in this chaotic world. There's so much to talk about within that notion of balance, and the body is its biggest advocate. And often our words don't honor that, and often our words fall short of the very essence to describe how far away from balance we really are. one of the gestures I try to express through is the one that the Western medicine model is this hand, and then we are coming in, the person, the patient, the person in need, and we fall between the cracks. So the help is here, right? Here's help, take it, right? We'll help you balance, right? We'll fix the symptom. Okay, not. Anyways, you get the idea. So within the notion of somebody coming to you to meet you with what they understand is helpful, does it actually help? Will it fill those gaps? Will it meet you in a place where it'll bring you closer to healing, restorative place? Anyways, will it work? That only is determinable if we can get to the truth and the root of our problems, our areas of discomfort. Without actually getting to those places, without being honest with ourselves and meeting the areas of imbalance within one's life, within one's way of being, will we actually provide help that will do any good? It's easy for somebody on that end to go, I've helped, I did everything I could, and without being super egotistical by saying I did this, I was somebody to try, and I feel like I did my best every step of the way to go above and beyond the measures within my level of awareness and energetic level to apply myself as much as possible, to apply the love and understanding that it took to bring somebody closer to their sense of comfort. And depending on where they're at in life, this is something that I also recognized anybody in my life I did this with. I just had the professional experience to practice very much in a high frequent area, high traffic area. Lots of flow for me inside of that world where I got lots of practice and harnessing my language and energy and coming to somebody to meet them and have them express to me where I can come into that context of help. You know, you can offer the spoon to the person and go, here you go, that's a bite. Here's a spoonful. And if they're not hungry, they're not going to eat. No matter how much you try, no matter how much you put that spoon closer and closer to the mouth or have them smell it or even get it on their lip, nothing. You can't force that kind of help. So what really is the conversation, and what I've learned to do, is to enter into people's levels of awareness and places of awareness and go, here we are on a holistic level, on a complete level, on a level that gets to all parts of you rather than just the superficial vital signs and verbalized answer to the question, how are you today? Can you rate your pain at a 1 to 10? Like, there's such an extreme level where that's definitely what is necessary and what serves. And before then, there are lots of things going on that we can address and create paths to get to the idea of change and to take measures towards goals that are attainable, that bring you closer and closer and closer and closer to what is balance. So, carrying this conversation on a little longer within my life path, my notion of understanding of what it means to show up for people, I learned through in that context I was not necessarily showing up for myself, like at all, to the point where I recognize what burnout feels like. And if you are watching this video and you are at all a conscious human being and were alive for the last few years, you can understand that the last few years being inside of the medical world were difficult, to say the least, because we had this thing called COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic, to which I have the rhetoric and the joke to say plandemic, scandemic, yada 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 yada. So taking care of myself became priority because I recognized that within that context, the higher ups, the authorities within that framework have their agenda and they're offering the help that people think they need. I didn't do that very good, my hands are a little cold. The help that they think they need. And it's so much more. The thing we need is so much more. We need our own attention placed on our lives and our choices and patterns and paradigms. We need our own love, and we need to start realizing and recognizing what it means to love ourselves. That language is so thrown around and superficial these days. Self-love, self-care day, I'm gonna have a bath and then go drink a bottle of wine to myself. I've been there, done that. So, what am I getting at, right? The idea that it comes to the point that we are here to talk about within this context is, what does it look like to honor a life path? Where is the balance in taking care of oneself so that one can take care of another? We are meant to support our fellow humans. We are supposed to provide awareness and perspective to the other persons around us or their blind spots. Our loved ones need our reflection and our feedback. That's how we grow. Literally, I'm getting to that conversation where you can see it's a part of my journey as well as what I focus on as well. How much I am here to provide space to navigate the literal internal world and then thus see the result of the beauty once you do so. Right? It's a process as well. It takes time. We need the grace and the patience of other people around us so that we can actually get somewhere. And where are we going? Alignment. What is this word? So, my goals when I set out within this career path were simply to help people who couldn't help themselves, to counsel people inside of the spaces that were hard and difficult, and they literally needed somebody to see them and witness them and provide them consolement and support. Literally, if I could say another word, it'd be love, but you're not supposed to say that in the professional world because that's not something you can measure. You can measure how much water you give them, or you can measure medication. But we are the medicine, friends. We as humans are medicine to each other. So let's circle back around to the notion of taking care of oneself and what it looks like in my own choices and in my own context. In my career, I had to walk away from it. I chose to do so, and I say I had to because that's where it came down to when I recognized what it meant. So the boundaries inside of care, when there was something put into place where it was a foreign, unidentified, under-researched, and very much pushed and marketed substance going around the context of the medical world saying you have to do this, take this, jab it in your arm, or you don't get to continue working as a nurse or any sort of field. It was also, you don't get to go to the bar, movie theaters, restaurants, you don't get to continue school, your education, you don't get to literally like be a teacher, you don't get to do this, you don't get to do that. Literally it was, you don't get to travel or fly. It was the most amount of overreach and greatest measure of control that I've ever experienced my entire life, and I have something to say about how much control and authority was placed over my person as a young girl. I recognized that language. I knew what it meant to have someone make external decisions for me, and I felt it coming in, and I watched it in the world of nursing and everything around, all the conversation around politics and all the circles that it fell into, and then watch what people did with it, how they came at me. They came at me saying you'd be a good neighbor if you did this. Oh, a real friend would do this. Oh, like you can't come around if that's the case. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I know what it means to be alone. I can handle not going out. I need to save money. I respect your decision, but this is mine. Like, I recognized how much I wanted to say in moments to tell people, and then I also realized that it was not my ability to do so. I talked where I could and did my best to express my beliefs, though I was in my own sense of uncertainty and doubt. I was like, what is my beliefs? What are they? How can I trust anything that I've learned? Because the world is now throwing this logical fallacy into place, saying that this is truth, and if you're not understanding of that, then you're ignorant and downright risky. Oh gosh, that was thrown in my face. The real risk, the real epidemic, the real virus that was being spread was fear. And to say that and have it mean something, I hope that this is already something you've entered into conversation and context within your environment, your circle. I hope you're not hearing about this for the first time through me, but let me be the one to say out loud here right now that it affected my entire life, and I would not have made the decisions that I made without it. I would still be a nurse. I'd still be working in long-term care, still singing my ukulele in the old folks' home and bringing joy and smiles and laughter as much as possible within that sense of home. And still I want to talk a little bit more about how the fact it wasn't home. It was turned into something else, and so was the rest of the world. We've witnessed and watched the unfolding of this grand scheme to now affect every aspect of our life. We still are unpacking what happened and what is going on inside of our awareness. We still are dealing with jaw tension and health issues from being separated and not knowing how to go forward in the world and how to have healthy social interactions, because that is so important. There are essentials, and that word has been tarnished, and yet I try to bring it back because there are things that we need as human beings, hands down. And if someone wants to say that you don't need to go outside and you believe it, are you really living? Do you get fresh air, and do you breathe deeply, and do you witness the world around you in a sense of awe and wonder and reverence? So, coming back into the context of the Western medicine world and Maddie, I walked away at the very last moment that I could, because I stayed in the position to do my job as best as I could until I no longer could. And I walked away at a time where I recognized I need to make change in my own life. And interestingly enough, I was celebrated, I was encouraged, and I was met with so much conversation to say, keep going, kiddo. Like, don't stop. You got this. Literally, like, the exact opposite of what I thought I would get. I thought I'd get a lot of shame and hate thrown at me, saying, like, you think you can escape this thing? No, I really just got, go kid and go far. And so here we are. I moved out of, if you're watching this and you know the local cities, I moved out of the Burnaby area. Well, actually I moved 4 times inside of Newton, South Surrey, Langley, Burnaby. I was in Kits for a little while doing my yoga teacher training, and then now I'm in Chilliwack. So I live in Chilliwack now, and it's been the best decision so far. Being in this area, beautiful. Love it, adore it, glad I made the decision. But my first decision to leave my career and walk away from something that I thought was going to provide me my sense of security inside of financial whatever, that alone has rippled out into my life, realizing what it means to kind of walk on water or float above what's going on in this world, and figure out what I can figure out for myself to make sure I have food in my fridge and a roof over my head and still my sanity intact. Mostly, right? If you're like me, or if you're human at all, you definitely have been tried in this area. And here we are coming out on some sort of side saying, okay, we still got lots of work to do. And like I'm saying, the point of all of me talking about this is how our choices lead us places. This is fresh stuff. This is only like the last few years. I am somebody to analyze my experience and dissect it and come into, what does this mean? Why am I experiencing this? Where does this lead me? What could be the lesson inside of maybe this difficult and trying time? There is always a lesson, my friends. You're always meant to recognize things, and it's not always easy. And let me be the first to tell you, it can be, words fail. Truly. The point I want to bring now to enter into this conversation is the healthy moments, people, choices, the things that did carry me forward and make me feel better inside of that very notion of my world being turned upside down. So my world is being turned upside down. What am I going to do about it, right? I got to do something. So like I said, I jumped into yoga teacher training program and then moved forward to attempt into teaching. But again, the world was still up in upheaval. There was still an uproar going on. There was still way too much for me to even talk about very, very specifically. So I was a server for a number of months, I think about a year. I'm just getting back into serving over here in Chilliwack, and ultimately, I'm here to serve, right? Ultimately, my job is to aid people in understanding their positions and what to do about it, provide options and alternatives to the Western medicine model, because I definitely was that person inside the context of the nursing world to say, hey, this is something that will help you or something, before medication was brought out, because interventions such as behavior redirection and interactions even helped people's moods rather than pull out more tranquilizing medication, more sedatives. I don't want to get into medication. I despise pharmaceuticals almost so much so that I get, emotional about it. But the more important point is that I do have alternatives to a lot of things if we can approach the conversation, if you're open to these things, if I, which I've had to do for myself, recognize that the things I was doing, like the food I was eating, the people I was around, the stories I was entertaining, the sleeping patterns, the job. I worked in a sports bar for some time and grateful for the job, grateful for it keeping me going. The context itself does have its energies to it, and being somebody who is sensitive to energies, you start picking up on these things. It's not necessarily the best for your health long term. We can do things for the short span, for a short span, and then we can recognize where it starts to come into our well-being, affecting our health level, causing imbalance. See how these ideas come back? So choices were made. Maddie moved out of that and got herself into this and that, and slowly but surely I'm getting into the idea of talking about my experience to then speak to the fact that I'm here for the other things outside of the structure of maybe a hospital or a long-term folks home or a seated table server patron interaction. I can meet you anywhere for conversation. I can meet anybody anywhere for conversation, because conversation is what helps us. Conversation catalyzes us forward to where we need to be, right? What do we need to talk about, right? This is the idea of approach. So there are lenses that we can get into. Any kind of context, any part of life can be defined and discussed as, philosophies go, and topics of all kinds. We all have interests, and there are lenses to the person and personality, because we can talk about that as well. And there's sciences to these things. So within my yoga teacher training, I learned a whole bunch of these laid out verbiage? I don't know the word I'm trying to say. We had it laid out to us, what it looks like and how to talk about a lot of the aspects of experience that maybe are outside of the day-to-day, go to your job, get your food, do your laundry, feed the dog, pet the cat. Oh, dishes. There's so much more happening, and we can tune into these experiences with a bit of awareness and through some special lenses. And so I love the conversation of astrology and tarot, because they bring the whole experience together in the moment that we're entering into. We, as in you and I, in context and conversation. I said conversation so many times in this video. If someone has a counter on it, that'd be cool, because I guess the whole point is there's conversation to be had, and I'm somebody to continue conversation and pick up where we left off. Conversation is endless, and there's so many interests I have, as well as passions to even get into interests, and I love celebrating life and recognizing that there is ambitions all around us, and the love for it all is deeply felt. So that's the other side of things, channeling our awareness into creative outlets, because that kept me sane. Art, yoga, music, there's a trifecta going there if you can hear it. But for the most part, my point about bringing it up is the fact that it really did keep my sanity intact. When I had to close doors on people and situations, living arrangements, all sorts of individuals, including like my actual biological mother, doors have to close in order for other ones to open. And those doors are ready for you to walk through and maybe take a leap through, to see that on the other side is all this expression, all this range of motion, all this joy, all this energetic stuff for you to enter into, with the reasons to do so, with the meaning behind it, with the purpose to greet the exact thing that's waiting for you, which is life, defined. Attempting to do so, here we are. Honestly, I definitely am somebody to recognize it's undefinable and speak to that quite often, and the excitement for the fact that it really is undefinable and beyond our comprehension is that very essence to keep us going forward and aiming to uncover the mystery, the magic, what is behind this very veil, what are we meant to experience, and how can we honor the experience to grow into greater depths of it. Layers to our being, many things that add up to this thing we call life. And it's a journey, it doesn't happen overnight. We don't just wake up, we get there, slowly but surely, with one foot in front of the other, right? And so part of this message was for you to hear a little bit about my journey. There's obviously a lot more details, and if you're interested, we can have a conversation about me, and then hopefully with that, also we can talk about you, because that's what I'm here to do, not just talk about me, right? I had a thought. It'll come back. Oh, yes. The aspects that come together, realizing that it comes into your decision making. Once you have greater awareness, you have the ability to use that awareness to make choices and apply discernment to then go in the direction that serves. We're going somewhere, so let's figure out where that's going. Pull back your arrow, right? Aim first, and then shoot. I let go of the bow. I don't know how to shoot an arrow very well, but we want to fly off in a direction, knowing we're going somewhere that'll be fruitful, will land us in exactly what we were envisioning, We want to go where our dreams are calling us to, and that takes a little bit of intention, a little bit of awareness, and a lot of love. So with that, I will end this video, and thank you for listening if you've listened all the way through. It's a pleasure for me to show up, and I will continue to do so, shining my light, spreading the love, being here for what I can. And with that being said, my friends, stay well and be good. Stay well and be good to yourselves. Until next time, namaste.